June 4th through June 20th, 1884. I've seen more beautiful and peculiar country this past month than perhaps ever in my life. Between those ruddy-colored sand dunes and cliffs that look like they were in the exact shape of the wind, I'm not afraid to admit I've found myself a mite dewy-eyed at the Almighty's handiwork. At one point, I even caught myself tipping my hat to him in appreciation. I couldn't help wishing I could share it all with Miss Moore. She's just the sort of woman. I found me some mighty fine specimens of Hopi cliff drawings the other day. I've copied some of them down and even got me one of those Hopi braves to share their meanings with me. I've always been curious about the cliff drawings I've seen out here in the West. Utah Territory is riddled with them. It was a rare privilege to ask one of the natives about their meaning. I do suspect the only reason he shared with me was out of pity. I must have looked a sight standing there with that wailing babe in my arms. It was a well-played hand for the stars. I'll give them that much. I can't help shaking the feeling that those ladies didn't want any real harm coming to the little critter any more than I did. It's causing me to question a few of my initial assumptions about them. Miss Moore has her own suspicions concerning the stars, and I'm beginning to see why. Regardless, that little papoose is back safe and sound with her people. By the time I handed her over, I think she'd taken quite a shine to me. I'm beginning to suspect these stars will be the death of me. They definitely don't play by the same rules as the outlaws I'm used to chasing. I don't know if it's the fact that they're ladies that gives them the edge, or the fact that I've got myself all wrapped up in thoughts of Miss Moore's welfare. I can't seem to think straight with Gambit and that White Widow character threatening her safety at every turn. I'll feel a mite better once Pearson takes up the helm in Frisco. June 23rd, 1884. Dear Miss Moore, thank you kindly for your encouraging words. They did me more good than I can say. It's easy to forget why we do what we do when we're out here in the thick of it. I'm sure glad I've got the likes of such a fine woman as the indomitable Lily Clara Moore to remind me I'm never alone when riding for a righteous cause. There sure is some pretty country out here. As a matter of fact, I traveled through an area of coral-colored sand dunes just before arriving in Kanab. It was sunset when I passed through, and those dunes looked like the exact shade of your hair when the sun hits it just right. I've thought of you an awful lot while tracking the stars across the desert, Miss Moore. I don't mind telling you, it's made this chase one of the most pleasant of my life. I was mighty happy to find your letter waiting for me in Kanab. See, I'm obliged to you, Miss Moore. If it weren't for your letter and your kind, encouraging words, my latest run-in with the stars might still be rankling me. I'd been trailing them all the way from Kanab toward the Escalante Mountains. I finally started gaining on them in a place between here and there that looked like the Almighty himself reached down with a paintbrush and painted that particular piece of nature by hand. creating some of the prettiest rock formations I've ever seen. I was admiring said sights when I spotted the stars across the cliffs from me. I slid off my horse and dropped to the ground behind some sagebrush, hoping they hadn't seen me. All three sisters were there and accounted for, but one of them was howling her head off. But rather than sounding like a hollering woman, she sounded just like a brand new babe. As I crept a little closer to get a better look, I realized it wasn't one of the sisters making the noise, but an actual baby. A papoose, to be exact. I was wondering what in the world these three were doing with the native baby when they all started arguing about who was going to take care of it. Belladonna was bellowing at the youngest, Azalea, telling her she could either take care of it or kill it. Belladonna didn't care either way, but Azalea had to decide fast, because yours truly was gaining on them. Now, the bright stars have their reputation, Miss Moore, but I'll admit I was surprised they'd stoop low enough to harm a baby, being women and whatnot. I know I was being naive, but I suppose after they helped you back in Frisco, part of me wanted to believe they might have had some good left in them after all, that they weren't just taking advantage of an opportunity to distract me so they could get a head start out of Frisco. Turns out I was right about them initially, because in the next moment, and with the most chilling indifference I've ever seen in the fairer sex, I saw Miss Azalea Star shrug at her sister, put the baby back in its papoose, and strap it over a branch on a nearby tree. The tree happened to be hanging precariously close to the side of a cliff. Without even a backward glance, all three ladies rode off toward the east. I knew I couldn't just leave the little critter dangling there for the buzzards to get, especially not while she was wailing her little heart out. She could have broken the branch and sent herself rolling 30 or 40 feet down the cliffside. When I finally reached her, I fetched her off the tree branch before she came to any real harm. Then I tried to shush her a mite before heading back to my horse. The moment I turned around, however, I was surrounded by a Hopi Indian war party. Now, the Hopi are peaceful by nature, so I knew things would most likely be all right if I handed over the babe. Thankfully, their leader knew a bit of English, and I was given the chance to explain myself. When I finished, he simply laughed at me. He said, "White man made fool by 3 women." I asked what he meant, and he proceeded to tell me. The stars had traded wampum and fire whiskey to borrow the babe. They promised no harm would come to the child. They just needed a way to distract the white man chasing them. So you see, the baby was never in any real harm. The warriors were there all the time, watching the child and the stars, and watching me. As much as I hate being hoodwinked, I'll admit I was glad to discover the stars weren't quite as heartless as I originally surmised. But once again, their plan had worked. By the time I'd heard the whole story and handed over the babe, not to mention doing some mighty smooth talking to back myself out of a rather precarious situation, The stars had a solid hour head start on me. Not only that, but because of the rock all around us, I had no immediate tracks to follow. I didn't pick up their trail again until the banks of Colorado River. Unless they're trying to trick me again. It looks like they're heading straight into Navajo territory. I hope you don't see this fiasco or the last as a sign of my incompetence as a tracker, Miss Moore. I have truly had some fine victories in my career, but I also don't mind sharing my failings with you, as I know you won't laugh at my misfortune. Even so, I don't mind so much if you find them entertaining. That might make the chagrin worthwhile. As for myself, I'm developing a healthy respect for the bright star's cleverness. So Gambit is back and bothering you? If you'll pardon my forward speaking, Miss Moore, it sounds like I might just have to do something about that when I come around Frisco again. As a matter of fact, I think we should do something about it now, as Gambit is a wily one. When he wants something, he isn't known for giving up on getting it very easily. If it's not presuming too much based on our friendship, and if it won't offend your more excellent sensibilities until I can make it back to Frisco, you might just go ahead and tell Gambit I'm courting you. Truth be told, those are my intentions, Miss Moore, even if, for now, it is by letter. Besides, Gambit's frightened of me on the whole, and telling him I'm your beau should at least give him some pause. I'm awful sorry to hear about these White Widow murders. I wish I wasn't chasing these confounded stars all over tarnation. I might just come back to Frisco and take that sheriff job myself. In the meantime, I know just the man for the job, if you don't mind carrying my suggestion to those taking charge in the matter. There's a fellow named Sam Pearson over in Pioche, Nevada. He has quite a bit of experience in these matters. You tell the folks of Frisco to send for him, and he'll clean the town right up. If they ask for references, tell them I rode with Pearson as a Texas Ranger. He's one of the best men I know, and he's tough, mighty tough. He won't put up with the riffraff around there for long. I'll be out of post office range for a while now. The next city I might come to with the post office will be Moab, so send any reply there. Take care of yourself, Miss Moore, and promise me you'll stay clear of this White Widow business. Your true friend and ally, Matt Hickman. P.S. Miss Lottie wrote and said you're getting awful close to opening your dress shop. Congratulations! When will you be sending for your sister? Use Lots Brothers and Company's Marseilles white soap. Use Marseilles white soap. Ask your grocer for it. Lot Brothers and Company, Buffalo, New York. C.K. Wenner and Brothers. Groceries and Provisions, 35 North 7th Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania.